What happens when someone sues a 5-year-old in court? So I'm sitting in this packed courtroom, watching my 5-year-old son Perry drool on himself while he sleeps in the defendant's chair, exactly like I told him to do. My next-door neighbor, Mr. Wickford, is suing us for what his lawyer keeps calling premeditated genocide and demanding the death penalty for my kindergartner. Yeah, you heard that right, for a 5-year-old. This insane situation started 3 weeks ago when I was teaching Perry to ride his tricycle without training wheels. Perry was determined to learn before his 6th birthday because his older cousin Blake could already ride a real bike, and Perry wasn't about to be shown up by anyone. We'd been at it for about an hour that day, Perry wobbling down the sidewalk with his tongue sticking out in concentration, his superhero helmet slightly crooked on his head. I'd finally let go, and he was doing it. Actually riding on his own for about 10 glorious seconds. He turned back to look at me with this huge grin, shouting, "Daddy, I'm doing it." That's when he veered off the sidewalk, overcorrected, and went careening straight through Wickford's front yard. The tricycle hit a decorative rock. Perry went flying through the air in what looked like slow motion, and landed face first in Wickford's lawn with a spectacular thud. Wickford came bursting out of his house like someone had just burned down his garage, screaming about his precious babies being murdered. I was trying to check if Perry was okay. He was crying more from shock than anything else, while Wickford was on his knees examining his plants, like a forensic investigator at a crime scene. He started taking photos from every angle, measuring the indent Perry's body had made, even putting little evidence markers he'd apparently had ready for just such an occasion. The guy actually got out a tape measure and started documenting the exact dimensions of where Perry landed. Within an hour, he'd called the police, who showed up and tried really hard not to laugh when Wickford demanded they arrest Perry for mass slaughter. When they politely declined, saying maybe this was more of a civil matter, Wickford escalated to calling his brother-in-law Bartholomew, who was a lawyer. Next thing I knew, my little boy had turned into the defendant. The lawsuit claimed Perry had committed an act of terrorism and demanded $50,000 in damages plus criminal prosecution via the death penalty. During the hearing, Bartholomew presented their evidence, 37 high-resolution photos of the crime scene from every conceivable angle. Wickford took the stand and started actually crying, real tears streaming down his face. He said Perry had taken innocent lives without provocation, that these were his babies he'd raised from seed. He talked about the emotional trauma of seeing them crushed, how he couldn't sleep at night knowing their killer was riding his tricycle freely next door. His wife Beatrice was nodding along, fanning herself with a tissue like she might faint. Bartholomew kept showing photos of the impact site, calling it a massacre, using words like callous disregard for life and sociopathic tendencies. I couldn't believe this was actually happening. Was my son actually going to prison? When it was our turn to present evidence, my baby-faced public defender Ms. Nguyen stood up and asked to see the prosecution's photos again on the courtroom's TV screen. She clicked through them slowly, zooming in on photo number 12, then 13, then 14. "Mr. Wickford," she said in this unexpectedly confident voice, "can you point out exactly which plants were killed?" Wickford jumped up and pointed dramatically at the screen. "Right there, my babies. They're all dead." Ms. Nguyen zoomed in further. "Sir, this is grass, regular Kentucky bluegrass." She clicked to the next photo, showing Perry's impact crater completely surrounded by perfectly intact daffodils, tulips, and rose bushes. "Your actual garden plants, every single flower, remain completely untouched. This child," she turned to the jury, "somehow managed to execute a perfect precision landing that avoided every single actual plant and landed exclusively on your lawn." Wickford's face went red. "But the grass is dead," he wailed. The judge couldn't hold it in any longer. He tried to cover his laugh with a cough, but it came out as this weird snort-laugh hybrid that echoed through the courtroom. The bailiff was biting his fist. The court reporter had given up typing and was just shaking her head. Even Wickford's wife had dropped her acting and was covering her smile with the tissue. The judge took a full minute to collect himself and spoke. "Sir, you're seeking the death penalty for a 5-year-old who fell on your grass?" Wickford nodded vigorously. "My grass deserves justice, Your Honor. I'll tell you what, if Wickford was a stand-up comedian, that courtroom would have been his best highlight." The judge banged his gavel once, looked at Perry, who'd just woken up and was asking if we could get ice cream, and said, "Case dismissed. Mr. Wickford, I suggest you invest in a keep off the grass sign."